You are tuning in to Access Live, a show about raising awareness, what's going on in the community, and to address the issues that impact youth and their families that have serious emotional and behavioral challenges. We are located at the Brookins Building at 1776 East Washington in Urbana, Illinois, and at the downtown location at 202 West Park Street.
Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And this is not the lovely voice of Imani Bazzell. This is the voice of Sister Carol Ammons. I am honored to fill in for Uma. I call her Uma, which it means mother in Swahili. Uma Imani, who can't be with us this afternoon, but we'll still have a wonderful, lively discussion about our health, our well-being, and our mental state and what we can do to improve those things. I'm so honored to be in the studio with Mr. Sam Smith, who is here with me.
Very happy to be here with Sister Carol. This is the first time we have sat down together in God knows how long.
In a little bit of time.
In a very long time.
So it's just, we'll have a great conversation today.
I hope so.
I would love to open this up and share a poem. Once I learned that Imani couldn't be here today, and she thought of reaching out to me. I said, oh my, does my schedule allow it? Yes, let me do it. So the mental health of our community is so important. And sometimes we don't, as a community, feel comfortable reaching out to mental health professionals, and which is why this show is on the air, to tell you that it's okay. But for those who, have other outlets, like Brother Aaron, who had a different outlet, which was poetry, was his outlet. I pulled his book from the shelf, and I thought I would share just a snippet of one of his poems that I think speak to the importance of having the outlet of art and music and dance. Like African dance is therapeutic for my daughter, and poetry is therapeutic for my husband, right?
Absolutely.
So I thought I'd share a piece of that, and it's an untitled piece from his book called Journey Through Another Man's Mind, which I think the title also fits the show. So it starts off like this. This is my own personal support system. So listen to my confessions. My visions and my fears transformed into blessings, but only after years of repression, of a confusion and drug abusing. It's all on these pages. The pain and joy of my ages, catchy phrases and new ways of amazement, replaced by real words and patience. Messages in certain places. Sometimes you even see faces of hatred for self, and subsequent actions that left me afraid to speak up when it happened. Now I'm laughing, humbly, but with a keen focus of what's in front of me, which is my freedom and my example, struggles I overcome, so my happiness is ample. Brother A-Dub talked about in his book, Journey Through Another Man's Mind, Sam, how he was really struggling with abusing himself, abusing his community and other people, and how he really had to grapple with turning it around. But he used poetry as his free service. He couldn't afford. He didn't have no health insurance, right? Like so many people are blessed to have the Affordable Care Act today, but he didn't have health insurance. He didn't have anybody saying it's okay to go and talk to somebody, right? Young brothers don't really get that as part of the masculine side of them, that they should go and reach out to others. And so poetry was that for him. And art and music is for somebody else.
Right.
You have some experience with that.
So and those of you that know me know that for the past few years, I've worked at the Cranit Center for the Performing Arts, and do a lot of arts-based work with schools and with neighborhoods. And in fact, maybe the last few years, I've been doing work specifically around neighborhood development and the performing arts. I told Carol I was going to tell her about a little magazine that I have in front of me that's called Gotta Be Jazz. Right now at the Cranit Center, we've been hosting 2 fifth grade classrooms from Wiley Elementary School, and those students have come and have been spending their days with us. The Cranard Art Museum also does a program that's called Cam Wham, where elementary school students will come and spend an entire week in the museum, and they will have their lessons in history and mathematics all folded into the context of arts and culture. So I think it's very exciting to be opening that up to young people.
Yeah.
Today I was with little small groups of about 15 to 20 kids, and we were pulling up YouTube videos, and the students have been studying different jazz personalities. Each student has a biography that they're responsible for, and they've been studying these personalities. And in their coursework, they've been studying jazz music, they've been studying jazz dance at school, they've been studying the history of jazz, different styles of jazz. And so we were pulling up YouTube videos of Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, hearing stories about where Charlie Parker's nickname Yardbird came from, hearing stories about how Dizzy got his name. He was so funny and zany and outrageous, and people said, dude, you are just Dizzy. So they started calling him Dizzy. You know, when you look in our neighborhoods, you look in Champaign-Urbana in particular, Champaign-Urbana has a long history of arts and culture in the black community, and you know, those things sustained us. The song in church, those programs helped to keep us alive. The last couple of years I've begun to use this expression of cultural deserts. Now, of course, we make
cultural deserts.
We make culture wherever we are.
Okay.
But I can tell you from what we know about the development of young artists, I think like Louis Armstrong, you know, early in his life history, as a child, he had a pretty rough early history. Was sent to a children's home for firing off a pistol. Sounds like some stuff that's happening in Champaign-Urbana. And he went someplace where they were playing some music, and he just decided at a very young age that he had to have a cornet. And he asked his caretaker, and they didn't have the money, but somehow or another he got a cornet in his hand. And what we know about the development of artists is they have these early life experiences with art. They hear a piece of music or they see something. For so many of us, it happened in church. You know, the connection between arts and culture and a spiritual life. I mean, that's really where we learn to sing, where we learn to read music, we learn to play music. People made instruments, which you see very little of that in our community today.
Yes, that's right.
People don't make drums, they don't make guitars, they don't. Well, Amira Davis does.
She makes instruments. That's correct.
She makes Shaker Rage.
That's right.
If you don't know Mama Amira and her work at Booker T. Washington School, she's there on Saturdays. Training both teachers as well as training and teaching African cultural arts. But if you look around, there are very few of those kinds of programs that young people, even older people, can just bump into and then get started in a world of art.
So there's a lot of resources in Champaign-Urbana that a lot of people may not know about. So I want to give an opportunity to the listeners to join in this conversation with us. If you know of a program that we all need to know about that's really promoting art, providing opportunity to expose children to music and poetry or dance, give us a call here at WBCP. That's 217-359-9227. 217-359-9227. You can join us. Sam and I would love to have your call and join the conversation. We also want to kind of, you said a few things that made me want to walk a little bit backwards.
Okay.
Because children, like I grew up in the church, and I thought I could sing, and the church said I could. That's why they
right.
they got choirs for children, because they say everybody can sing, so you could be a part of that. How important is art to the development of children? schools have cut it out.
Right.
How important is this, and what
Right.
should we do about it?
Well, I think if you wanna get a indication of how important and how valuable the arts are, when we think about the arts, we often think about a particular art form. So we think about someone playing music or someone painting. But what happens for us as human beings in those kinds of artistic experiences goes beyond the creation of artwork. I remember hearing Minister Farrakhan say one time, talking about arts and culture, you can get hip hop in Iraq. Now, this is before the U.S. invasion of Iraq. This is probably maybe a 20-year-old statement, right? And so what he was pointing to was just the power of arts and culture to cross borders and influence culture.
Right.
So you imagine young black and brown boys in the South Bronx of New York, because there was no music programs in schools, or music programs were being cut, and they began developing this way of singing and talking and walking and dancing and rapping and emceeing and doing graffiti, and that culture spread from this neighborhood, and you can get hip hop
all over the
everywhere
world. Yes.
on the planet. You can get hip hop in North Korea.
That's right.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
I think about my 12-year-old son, Amir, now. Now, this is interesting. I'll tell you two stories. Amir and Jelani separate. 12 and 19 now for Jelani. Amir comes home one day, and I hear this tapping, and I'm going, what is that? Who's doing that? And all I can hear is these beats. So he's taken his two pencils and different size pencils, pens, and markers, and turned them into drumsticks, and he's beating on everything, walls, table. So he has this music in his head that he's beating out as he moves about. He's doing it everywhere. Shower, you just hear tapping everywhere. And it's innate. It's inside of him, and it's coming out, using his pencils and pens. Now, Amir has had guitar lessons. He has access to drum lessons. But what has happened is he's become interested in some new kind of rhythm making, right? Which is maybe he's gotten it from Miss Amira's Saturday School. For any parent who doesn't know about this, you really want your children to be a part of the Saturday School. The Saturday School is coming to an end in the next 3 weeks, but I'm sure it'll start over again. And the expression that the children learn, plus the history, is enormous. And so my son, Amir, has been participating in the Saturday School for, he's only missed 1 or 2 sessions just because of my schedule, and he's picked up a lot. Now, turn to my 19-year-old who called us on the phone from Jackson State University and told us that he was going to, on the side, while he's getting an urban planning degree, he was going to host music events.
Oh, that's fabulous. That is absolutely fabulous.
So he's going to put on the end of the school year with a rapper from down south, whoever this young man is, but he's putting on this event for the students' graduation. And so that's what he's been doing for the last several weeks, planning it. He's recruited folks and got everybody engaged around this idea of music. And so I think it has kept him focused. He hasn't got no trouble, no problems. He's gotten very focused around promoting music events.
Right.
So music has a way of transforming.
Absolutely.
And
That's
we've seen
correct.
that, I guess, in your program with the younger children. What have you seen as a takeaway for those? These are elementary school students.
Right. So these are elementary school students, and there is, we sort of know this just from our own lives, the stories that you tell, but there is a lot of developing research that demonstrates that arts programs do things for people that other kinds of programs don't. For example, even if you compare after-school arts programs with academic programs, and with athletic programs, you will find that the kids who are involved in certain kinds of arts programs, now they have to be arts programs, they have to be very good arts programs, right?
Full.
So they have to have people like Nathaniel Banks, who is one of the founders. Nathaniel Banks and Robert Lewis are both founders of what they're now calling the Banks Bridgewater Lewis Fine Arts Academy.
Okay.
So they have changed their name from Mo Better Music to reflect their broader vision of incorporating dance, visual arts, design arts into their program, the Banks Bridgewater Lewis Fine Arts Academy. So what distinguishes arts programs that have that kind of impact is that you have excellent professional instructors and teachers. So having an after-school program where kids might get to color can be very important, but we see tremendous benefits for children when they are in programs that have dedicated staff, they have dedicated budget, and they have dedicated space and facilities. So that's one way you can assess the quality of an arts programming, is their dedicated staff, dedicated budget, and dedicated facility. And when you have those things in place, you see different outcomes for children that are involved in sustained, rigorous arts programming. They're problem solvers.
Yes.
Right? So one of the things about artists, I heard this story that special forces, they like artists because they can figure out more ways to get into stuff, to blow up stuff, to get out of stuff.
Yeah, dude.
Right? They engagement in arts programming, different kinds of arts programming, teaches young people to think about solutions to problems. Just imagine Duke Ellington sitting in front of a keyboard and all he has is some sounds, and he is about to compose a romantic ballad that is going to melt somebody's heart, and all he has is sound. How does he do that? Just imagine Archibald Motley. All he's got is torn pieces of paper and some color. And he's trying to convey something about the vibrancy of black life, the vibrancy of Harlem life. And all he has is color, and he's trying to tell a story. He's trying to produce a feeling. So that idea of problem solving, novel approaches to problem solving, and you will begin to see young artists generalize that into other areas.
So we have a lot of, and even for people who may say, well, you know, all art is not good, right? I've seen some things that I would probably not gravitate to, but I watched on, recently I watched a rapper who was on Oprah. I just happened to find the OWN network and found Oprah on it. And she asked him a question about, you know, some of the derogatory things that may be in some of the rap music or something that may be portrayed in a magazine. And he said in response that the experience of young people today may not look the same as it was for young people 30, 40 years ago. And their pictures, what they're painting, what they're saying is an expression of what their reality is today. Even if he said he is a different person, he's been changed in some way. He referred to God a lot during the interview, and how his own experience has been changed and how he sees things differently from painting all of these pictures. Now he can see these pictures. We're going to take a break. We'll be back. We're going to pay some bills. This is Access Live. Sister Carol and Brother Sam.
Access Live can be heard every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 3 p.m. on WBCP 1580 AM in Champaign-Urbana. You can learn more about the Access Initiative by visiting their website at www.access imani-initiative2.org.
And we are back. Again, this is Sister Carol. Miss Imani Bazzell is out today, and I'm in studio with Mr. Sam Smith, and we're talking about the importance of the arts in the mental health of not just children, but community members, adults, everyone should have some kind of outlet that is artistic. You know, you don't have to be very good at it. You just need to be able to do it. And I enjoy African dance. When I can do it, I find myself to be very happy. And my daughter said it's as good to her as going to church. And that's something African dance do that for her. What is it? What is yours?
So I did theater. I did fair amount of community theater. I spent years doing Chinese Kung Fu. So it looks like we got a caller.
We do.
Maybe they have
We're going to take our call and see what they want to
conversation.
talk about. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
This is my own personal support system.
All right, brother.
So listen to my confessions. My visions and my fears all transformed into blessings, but only after years of repression, of confusion and drug abusing. All right, that's enough of that, y'all. That's enough.
That's beautiful.
Good, because I read a part of that earlier.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I just wanted to call in, and I wanted to really drive home that point that the repression, the freedom and liberation that I feel from doing poetry, doing the spoken word, sharing real life experiences, or even just visions and my fears or my dreams. It's a liberating experience, and I think that's what it is for me. And it's like keeping me sane as well, you know, because I get a chance to express some of these things that I have pent up inside of me, and just letting it go is extremely important. And I think that's something that why I believe that it's so important to my mental stability, and why it meant so much to me as I was going through all that drug addiction and all those very different things. Writing was so therapeutic for me that that's why I enjoy seeing other young people find their voice, writing, doing poetry, spoken word, rapping, whatever it is that they may find. But in particular, as a lyrical person, I find the greatest joy in listening to people's thoughts and them expressing them through song or through poetry and stuff like that.
Well, we certainly appreciate you calling and expressing yours.
Thank you. You don't have any questions for me?
You know what?
Brother Sam got a question for you.
I don't have a question for you, but I gotta,
Comment.
you know, I always got something to say, Aaron. And so a few weeks ago, I was in D.C. and this young man that I've known all his life called me after that trip in tears and said, "I have never been able to tell you this, but you've always been a role model to me, and I'm so glad we got to spend some time together." And I don't know if you know this, Aaron, you know, but every time you open your mouth and you spit some truth and wisdom, my heart breaks because you're speaking right to the condition that I am in. And I so appreciate that.
Wow. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you very much. I do think it highlights that on many occasions I've been able to say to other artists that how much something that they said resonated, you know, with me, and often people have come up and say that, you know, that piece that you shared really opened my eyes and made me feel empowered, and that's the piece, you know, and it doesn't always have to come from the standpoint of poetry, but it's the freedom associated
Absolutely.
with art.
Right.
And some people don't get it. They don't see that freedom. And but some people just, you know, tell the truth about their situation. But the empowerment that is associated with it. It means a lot, and it certainly inspires me to keep going when I hear things like that.
Right.
What you just said. So
Well,
I appreciate you, man. You know I love you.
I love you too, brother. So I'm gonna read something that is a very different style of a poem, but to me, I think what your poetry speaks to, and if you all don't have a copy of Brother A. Dub's Journey Through Another Man's Mind, I'd highly recommend it. And if you have the opportunity to invite him to come and speak at a function that you are doing, even if it's in your living room or with your family, it's a beautiful thing.
Before I let him go and you do your poem, I just want the listeners to know that Brother Aaron has really put himself out very publicly. All the time that we've been married together, it wasn't, it was a liberating experience for him to come out. And once I started reading his poems early in our marriage, I didn't know all of the pain, the hurt, the experiences that he had experienced through his young life, but I learned of him really through his poems. That's why I knew who he was deep inside. And so when you read people's poems, you're really reading their experience, their hurt, their pain, their overcoming. And I appreciate him always being very open to the world to see. And even those who may want to critique his walk, they cannot deny the liberation that he's expressing and what he has been able to do through his poetry, through his mental walk. He's been able to share it to the point that he spoke at Danville Prison with the black and brown brothers and sisters, mostly at Danville Prison, and gave them an opportunity of expression. And maybe he'll share in a few minutes, if you can stay on the line just for a second, to share that. Brother Sam is going to give a poem to us, and then I wanted you to share just a little bit about how the brothers inside utilize poetry to help them mentally inside. So if you could stay on for a second, Brother Aaron, is that okay with you?
All
Okay,
right.
thank you.
So this is a little bit of a different style of poem, but one of my favorites, and I think it speaks to what Brother Aaron, again, the tender place in me that it touches, and it brings this idea of uncovering our own spirit and how difficult that is. There's an expression attributed to Jesus that says, if you use what is within you will save you. If you don't use what is within you will destroy you. So this is a piece that's called St. Francis and the Sow. St. Francis is one of my favorite saints, and it's by Galway Cannell. The bud stands for all things, even those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower, and to retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely, unto the flower again from within of self-blessing. As St. Francis put his hand on the creased forehead of the sow, and told her in words and in touch blessings of earth on the sow. And the sow began remembering all down her thick length, from the earthen snout all the way through the fodder and slops to the spiritual curl of the tail, from the hard spininess spiked out from the spine, down through the great broken heart, to the blue milken dreaminess spurting and shuddering from 14 teats into 14 mouths, sucking and blowing beneath them, the long, perfect loveliness of sow.
Thank you, man. That's beautiful. Everything has beauty in it if you bring it out, right?
That's exactly right.
Brother Aaron, can you just share just in a couple minutes of your experience at Danville Correctional, the Poetry Speak Cafe at DACC, I think that's what it was called, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to connect it to what Sam just shared about the budding of the flower. And one of the things that I spoke to a brother before I went to speak to these brothers, and he had been home from the penal institution for a little over a year. And I said, what is it that really is going to resonate with them? Because this was my first time going, and I was a little apprehensive because I didn't know what to expect. He said, tell them that we miss them.
Wow.
But we miss the real them. The husbands, the fathers, the brothers, those making the contributions to our society that we need them to make. We don't miss the things or the thought processes that may have ended them up there. He said, be real with them. And I thought that was a connection to what Sam was just saying about the budding from within, right? And really truly blossoming into who you are.
Right.
And being okay with with your own identity, not with the one that someone else has created for you, or one you think you had to, a facade that you thought you had to maintain, right? And so when I say that I want you to listen to my confession, right? This is me trying to carve out this space through poetry for me to be truthful about my experiences, because only by me being truthful about who I am and what my experiences are can I really grow from inside. And there are so few spaces where we can actually tell the truth about ourselves. You know, and these brothers were feeling that. Some of them are dynamic poets. They were amazing artists, and they had this tremendous insight that comes from some of the clarity that they have of being clean and off the streets and away from a lot of the everyday rigors that they had to deal with. And it was an amazing experience for me because unfortunately I saw several people in that I know, that I knew from Champaign-Urbana, who've been gone a long time. And I feel like many of those dreams are deferred. And I really understood lately the depth of Langston Hughes' piece, A Dream Deferred. And so when I think of all those whose lives are being wasted in these penal institutions, and who are strung out on drugs and stuff like that, I see a dream deferred. I see a contribution to humanity that's not being made because they have hidden in these boxes and they're trying to maintain an identity that's truly not themselves. And they could appreciate that while I was there. Many of them had read some of the books that I have. Several of them came up and said, man, I have your book, and how much it meant to them. So it was an amazing experience, and I hope to be able to do it again soon.
Well, we appreciate you staying on the line for a minute. We're going to clear the line in case other callers want to call in. But keep listening, and we appreciate and love you.
All right, I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.
And if you're listening, go ahead and call in. Let us know if you have a favorite poem. I guess April is National Poetry Month.
Well, we certainly made it National Poetry Month.
It certainly is. And
It
Brother
sure
A-Dub mentioned Langston Hughes' Dream Deferred. So I think we'll read that before we take a break. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode?
We'll be back in a second.
The Access Initiative mission is to build a trauma and justice-informed system of care designed to create a healed community that works to ensure that youth and their families are resilient, resourceful, responsible, and restored.
We are back.
We are back.
We are back. We are back. And since it's National Poetry Month, and this is a mental health show, and we know poetry is good for the soul, the mind, and the body. Sister Carol has to sign out, unfortunately, a few minutes early. But before I go, I wanted to read a short poem out of Brother A-Dub's book, Journey Through Another Man's Mind, poems by Aaron Ammons, a.k.a. A-Dub. And then I'm going to say my goodbyes, and I'm going to tune in and listen the rest of the show with Brother Sam closing us out with a few other pieces. So, this poem is called Breathe, Then Proceed. As the anger overflows in me, violence, hatred, and revenge begins to consume me. If I'm not careful, very strong, and full of faith, this jungle will turn me into something. I don't even know what it'll be because it's so uncontrollable. I have reached this point, but, I know the answer. I will not be trapped in my own mind. I refuse to be a puppet for the other side. Be enlightened to all things. It's extremely hard and frustrating to play and win a game that you don't know the rules to. If all else fails, read the instructions. This poem helped me after my very big race in the primary, because you have all these emotions, but the poem itself says, you have all these emotions, you acknowledge them, but afterwards, breathe, then proceed. If all else fails, read the instructions.
Wow.
You're in a race.
Wow.
Thank you so much for letting me sit in, Mother Imani Bazzell, Access Initiative, Tracy Parsons, and all the staff there, and certainly with you on the second mic here. I truly appreciate seeing you.
Well, thank you so much.
I love you, and we'll be
well.
in touch, obviously. Okay. And I'm going to sign out and let you move and proceed to the next poem.
Okay. All right.
With our engineer here, Sam.
All right. So thank you, Sister Carol.
All right.
So I think we're supposed to be doing some poetry together. All right. So thank you, Sister Carol. Thank you, Brother A-Dub. We've been talking about the connection between the arts and mental health, and certainly we know that there is a strong connection between self-expression, self-discovery, mental health, and mental well-being. Okay, so we were talking. One of the things that A-Dub was describing in his own emergence was how his words and his letters helped him say who he is in the world. And there's something profoundly important about being able to say who you are in the world. And he described this difficulty, what I would term a cultural desert, that there may be few places for many of us to be who we are, to say who we are, to express who we are, to explore who we are in the world. There's a poet, I'm going to read a poem. It's a fairly old poem, but one of the stories about this poet is that he was an educated gentleman and was a man of letters, much like some of our lyricists in hip-hop. But because he was an African-American man, there was an expectation that he would do poetry in a certain voice. And there are stories about him showing up to do poetry and people being surprised that he was a black man who spoke the King's English or the Queen's English. So this is one of his poems, We Wear the Mask. It's by Paul Lawrence Dunbar, and I'll read that for you. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but, O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. So that is a piece by Paul Laurence Dunbar, and he was supposedly one of Maya Angelou's favorite poet. I've always liked that piece. I liked also what the former caller had to say about the value of the arts in terms of uncovering who we are really and coming to terms with who we are really. So if you're out there and you're listening, we're at WBCP 359-9227. We're talking about the connection between mental health and the arts. Give us a call if you have a favorite poem. I'll look it up and read it on the air if I can. 359-9227. I'm going to read another piece by Derek Walcott. I'm actually reading my favorite pieces, so there's a huge gap between very old poetry that was written a long time ago and maybe some more current stuff, very different kinds of poets. In this piece, Walcott deals with this experience that may happen with many of us as we explore the arts and come to a deeper understanding of who we are, who we could be. This poem is called Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. That's a piece called Love After Love by Derek Walcott. And we are here at WBCP talking about the connection between arts and culture and mental health. And I'm going to give you a little information about a couple of programs that are happening in the local community. I mentioned the Mo Better Music program that is now called the Banks Bridgewater Lewis Fine Arts Academy, founded by Nathaniel Banks and Robert Lewis. They meet weekly at the Salem Baptist Church. This summer, the Banks Bridgewater program will be having a summer camp. They teach jazz, jazz music, jazz language. They teach horns and percussion and keyboards. And you can find them, you can get a hold of them at Salem Baptist Church. Also this summer, there is a project that is happening out of the Boys and Girls Club. It is being organized by a young woman named Michelle Adeo, and it is a week-long summer camp during the month of June. That camp is being organized in order to benefit the children who attend programs at the Boys and Girls Club. And you can call the Boys and Girls Club. You can ask for Monica Church at the Boys and Girls Club in Champaign, and she can give you more information about that summer program. The phone number for the Boys and Girls Club is 217-355-5437. You can ask her about the summer arts program. We at the Cranit Center are happy to be a part of that planning and that summer arts program. And we are here at WBCP 359-9227. Feel free to give us a call. We'd be happy to hear from you on April 16th, National Poetry Month. And if you have a poem you'd like us to read, we would be happy to read a poem for you. I'm going to see if I can find a poem by a poet that you might know. Born when was this guy born? Let's see. I'm looking through this now. Born in 1934. We'll see if we can find a was born to Colt Leroy Jones and Anna Lois Jones. Was a part of defining the Black Arts movement in the late 1950s and the early 1960s. We lost him maybe just about 1 year ago. And I'm looking through our little collection right here. See if we might find a poem about love by Mr. Leroy Jones. Otherwise known as Imani Bazzell. What does Mr. Imani Bazzell have to say about love? Well, I can't seem to find Mr. Baraka's love poem, and I don't want to read his political poem right now. So if you have a favorite poem and you'd like to hear it read, give us a call at WBCP 359-9220. We're talking about the connection between arts and culture and mental health. WBCP 359-9227. Three five nine 359-9227 WBCP National Poetry Month. Got about 3 minutes here, so if you got a poem you'd like to have read, give me a call. I'll dig up one of my favorite poems by Claude McKay, another old poet. Claude McKay. This will probably be our last poem. Claude was part of the poets in the Harlem Renaissance, and this was probably one of his more militant pieces. We'll end the show with that. Claude McKay. If we must die, Let it not be like hogs hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe, though far outnumber. Let us show how brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave, like men we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. Claude McKay, If We Must Die. We're at WBCP 359-9227. If you have a poem you'd like to hear, give us a call. We'd be happy to read it on the air for you. Claude McKay, as I said, was a important figure during the Harlem Renaissance. He was born in Clarendon, Jamaica. Died in the late 1940s, I believe. Let's see if maybe we can find another piece by Claude McKay. Okay, so this is Sam Smith at WBCP for Access Live, signing off, 359-9227. All right, brother, take us out.
Thank you for listening to Access Live. Access Initiative is a trauma and justice-informed system of care. We're glad that you joined us today. Please join us every Wednesday at 2 o'clock p.m. for Access Live. Thank you and be well.